Off last week. I was traveling. It was lovely, and we have lots of news to discuss. I'm attorney Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, immigration lawyer with Lincoln-Goldfinch Law. We're based in Austin, Texas, but we are a virtual law firm. We can represent people all around the 50 United States and really all over the globe. I'm here every week on Tuesday in English and Thursday in Spanish to give you updates on the news of the week, to answer your questions, and to give you an action item that you can do. I know a lot of folks right now are watching what's happening in the world of immigration and feeling like you want to do something, you want to make a difference, but you don't exactly know what those things are. So that's the point of the action tip, is to just give you little pieces of work that you can do that can help advance the cause of our immigrant friends. A couple of notes. Could we turn on that light, Chris? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about the news. Yesterday, if you were on the socials or watching the news, you probably saw the plane of South Africans, white Afrikaners who are Dutch descendants in South Africa. They were invited on a chartered plane to come as refugees, and they were handed American flags and invited with warmth and welcome and kindness from the Trump administration. And it's pretty upsetting, frankly, to those of us who have been paying attention to refugee policies and working with refugees over the years, because this is a very blatant example of racism at play in refugee policies. So on the same day that we're seeing this plane of white South Africans arrive, the Trump administration cancels temporary protected status for Afghan refugees who are in the United States, whom many of us know were supportive of the U.S. efforts in Afghanistan, put themselves in danger supporting the military efforts by translating and doing things like that. Our parole program was not supported by the previous administration, but even worse than that, on the same day that we see all of these white South Afrikaners come, or South African Afrikaners come to the United States, the TPS gets canceled for Afghanistan. So it's just really, really blatant racism at play in our immigration policies. And it's really upsetting because, as we know, a lot of horrific things are happening to Black and brown immigrants around this country. Probably people saw the video of the mother who had the 1-month-old in her arms and she was taken. Things like that are happening. So I don't know what else to say about it other than we see the racism at play. It is very, very obvious and blatant. In line with that, the Episcopal Church has decided to withdraw from the refugee resettlement program. The church as a whole has received a lot of grants. They've done a lot of support of refugees over the years. Most of the refugee money has been taken by the administration. A lot of nonprofits are shuttering their doors. But in a commentary about the racism at play in the refugee policies, the Episcopal Church has withdrawn from the refugee resettlement program. Next item of note, the Trump administration has begun quietly launching the Gold Card program. Sounds like certain people are being invited to apply for the Gold Card. This, of course, is the $5 million investment option for people to get a special green card, which is a gold card. It's not been announced to the public or launched. It's not something that people can affirmatively go apply for. My opinion on this is that it's not going to result in a lot of immigration to the United States. For example, we have the EB-5 program, which requires an investment of between $500,000 and $1 million. But that's money that's invested that theoretically someone would receive a return on their investment or have access to that money down the line. Whereas this gold card program is just essentially a payment of $5 million to get status. So it's not better, and we don't see big numbers come in. But in any event, it has been quietly launched. So we're watching that. In Florida, we've talked about this. They have launched and have ongoing what they're calling Operation Tidal Wave, which is a cooperation between local law enforcement agents and ICE through what's called a 287G agreement. This is the agreement whereby a local police agency, like a city police agency or a county or even a state, signs on to cooperate and essentially deputize their officers to be immigration officers. And so through many of these agreements in Florida, over 1,000 migrants have been detained in this Operation Tidal Wave. It was a large-scale raid. I think it's worth watching what's happening in Florida, because in Texas, where I am, the state legislature is very intent on forcing these cooperative agreements between local law enforcement agencies and the federal government. So states like Texas could definitely be next for Operation Tidal Wave. I know that's scary to hear for immigrants living in Texas. Nothing's different. You're already on high alert, of course, and the advice is still the same. Please talk to an immigration lawyer individually about your case. Move forward with an affirmative application if you qualify for legal status. Create a safety plan. Know your rights. These are the things that you can do to protect yourselves in times like these, in scary times. And then finally, Senator Gallego has proposed comprehensive immigration reform in the U.S. Congress. He's a Democrat. I don't have a lot of hope or expectation that moves forward. I think if we're going to see comprehensive immigration reform, it's going to have to come from the Republicans in this era and this time. Okay, those are updates on news. Something else I want to say on the news. I did a video yesterday that got a lot of actual negative feedback, but I stand by my advice, and here's what it is. There are some videos going around of people, well-meaning, well-intended people interfering with ICE enforcement actions. An example is this video of this mother who has a 1-month-old baby, and she's with her baby and her teenage daughter, and ICE is coming to arrest her, and the neighbors form this human chain around this woman and her child. If the videos are viral, they're very upsetting to watch, so trigger warning if you try to watch the videos. Here's my perspective on this stuff. I understand the desire of someone who is a U.S. citizen, who is white, who feels like, I'm going to put my body in the way of a racist action like this. That's the way I'm going to resist. In my opinion, that is not helpful. And the reason for that is that it ratchets up the drama and the anxiety of the moment, and it can cause law enforcement to double down, to pull out their guns, to throw people to the ground, to arrest people that they would not have arrested. It creates an event that can be much bigger and much more devastating and traumatic than a simple arrest might have been. If law enforcement is intent upon arresting someone, it's very, very unlikely that they are going to be talked out of it in that moment, particularly if this is someone who's engaging in racial profiling, or if they are being racist, or if they are violating their own laws. No one's going to yell at them or get in their way or talk them out of going through this action. So the best thing we can do, especially as, U.S. citizen white witnesses of enforcement actions, is be good witnesses, is take copious notes of what's happening. Who are these agents? What are they wearing? What uniforms do they have on? How many of them are there? What cars are they driving? What are their license plates? Note all that. Pull out your phone, record it. It is totally legal to record a law enforcement action, but I would not recommend interfering with a law enforcement action unless you are highly trained, or you're a lawyer, or you're representing a person, right? That's very, very different. But if you are a neighbor or a friend or a bystander, don't get in the middle or yell in an enforcement action, because it's only going to increase the danger to the people who are being detained. And it's upsetting. You're going to be witnessing an injustice go down before you, and you're going to want to take action in that moment. But in many of these instances, the justice has to come after the event. So that's my advice. I stand by it. I think that it's really important to think through, how do we show up in support of immigrants in times like these, and have a plan, do some training on this stuff, and be prepared. I've got a couple of questions. That's all I've got to say on the news for the week. So feel free to start sending in your questions on any of this stuff, on the news, on policy, on particular cases. I've got a couple of questions in Spanish. ¿Recomiendas, abogada, registrarse a las personas que están ilegales en los Estados Unidos? No estoy dando consejos específicos sobre si alguien debe registrar o no, porque es una decisión personal muy individual, porque hay consecuencias por no registrar, que puede llevar multas o también un misdemeanor, delitos, pero la consecuencia por registrar es que inmigración va a buscar estas personas que han registrado para detener y deportarlos. Entonces, no hay una buena opción. Mi recomendación es que cada persona tenga una consulta individual con un abogado, que es confidencial, es privado, y podemos discutir las consecuencias y lo que van a hacer. This question was about whether someone who's undocumented should register. I don't feel like I can give blanket advice to people about whether you should register or not. I'm sorry. I wish I could. I wish I could make it that easy. But it's a really personal decision, and there are consequences for registering, where you could, if you register, those are the folks that they're going to look for to detain and deport. But if you don't register, you could face penalties, fines, and criminal penalties. So the best thing you can do is talk to a lawyer about your individual situation. A lot of people don't actually have to register. Like if you are in removal proceedings, or you entered with a visa, or you have a green card application pending, you don't have to register. So maybe you don't even have the requirement. So talk to a lawyer individually about whether you should register. Hola, Daniel Canales. Tengo un caso visa T con ustedes, pero no he puesto huellas todavía. ¿Qué pasa si me arresta ICE? So, Daniel, porque usted es cliente de nosotros, vamos a estar disponible representarle en caso de que sea detenido, y podemos responder con esta solicitud pendiente, y es de ayuda para nosotros pausar o pelear la deportación. Pero usted, lo que debe hacer en un arresto es no firmar un acuerdo para ser deportado, y llevar una copia de recibo de su caso pendiente y la carta de representación que le hemos dado, para dar a inmigración, para que podamos hablar con ellos. The question is from a client of ours who has a case pending, but he says, I haven't done my fingerprints yet, so what happens if I get arrested? And my advice is, any client of ours who gets detained has access to us. We'll be able to respond, but make sure you keep a copy of your petition and the letter of representation that we've given you, so that you can give that to ICE, and make sure you don't sign any deportation. Ok, Jireth en TikTok. Hola, ¿qué tan probable es que mi esposo no sea arrestado? Hoy él irá a su corte. No tiene ningún delito ni nada, gracias a Dios. Irá con él uno de sus abogados representantes. Ok, no están arrestando muchas personas en las cortes, Jireth, entonces sería muy raro si lo arrestan. Solo lo van a arrestar, me imagino, si él lleva antecedentes penales o delitos o tatuajes en la, ¿cómo se dice?, el cuello o la cara. Si es venezolano, estos podrían ser riesgos. Pero me imagino porque lleva un abogado no corren riesgo. This question was from someone whose husband is going to court today. She wants to know how likely it is that he'll get arrested in court. What I'm saying is it's pretty unlikely. They're not doing a lot of arrests at the court right now. The only time I'm really seeing arrests at the court is for people who have a criminal history, like they've been arrested and they're out on bond, or for folks who are heavily tattooed. Venezuelans who are heavily tattooed right now are under more risk, because the Trump administration has decided that all those folks are Tren de Aragua members. So any Venezuelan who has tattoos very visible, neck, face, you should review the tattoos, talk to a lawyer, and always take a lawyer to your check-in and to your court dates. I don't agree with this. I'm just reporting to you guys what I'm seeing, of course. Ashlyn, trying a joint motion to reopen in Charlotte. Is it safe after filing that? Can it be approved? Also, can he still get the green card if he hasn't done taxes with VAWA? So if the motion to reopen, Ashlyn, is for an in absentia order, meaning he was ordered deported and he wasn't there, there's an automatic stay of deportation while the motion is pending. So he is protected against deportation while the motion is pending. But if it's a joint motion, meaning DHS and he both agree that the court should open it, then it probably shouldn't pen that long and the court should reopen proceedings, at which point, similarly, he should not be deported because jurisdiction is with the court. So I think getting the motion filed as quickly as possible is one of the safest and best things that you guys can do. If it's a joint motion, I imagine the judge will approve it because both sides agree. Yes, he can get a green card if he hasn't done taxes. Doing taxes is not a requirement to get a green card, especially with the VAWA. So hopefully that's all good news. And if you guys have a good lawyer, it sounds like they'll be able to navigate all of this for you. If not, give us a call and we can help you. Ok, tengo entrevista, 148, I-45, ajuste por VAWA, debo ir con abogada. Sí, cada cita con inmigración ahora es recomendable llevar a abogado porque están haciendo unos arrestos en las citas, pero además tenemos una nueva política que dice que en los ajustes de estatus que inmigración va a revisar el caso de VAWA. Entonces, usted probablemente va a tener que discutir la historia de abuso. So, sería recomendable tener un abogado para preparar y para parar preguntas que no son como appropriate, no sé cómo se dice, como buenas o aceptables. So, sí es recomendable llevar un abogado a la entrevista. This question was about someone who has a VAWA adjustment of status coming up. That's when you getting a green card through abuse by a U.S. citizen. And I do think it's a good idea to bring an attorney to those really to any interview right now, because we are seeing some enforcement actions, meaning arrests at interviews that didn't ever used to happen. So in 20 years that I've been doing this, I can think of 2 clients who got arrested at interviews, and that was because they had warrants out for criminal activity that we didn't know about. But it's super, super rare. Right now, we're seeing more and more of that for people who don't have arrests or criminal history. So it is, I think, really helpful to have an attorney. Also, because when you're doing a VAWA adjustment of status, they're now asking about the VAWA. They want to know about the history of abuse. So you need to make sure that you've reviewed everything that's in your application and you are ready to discuss it, and there's no discrepancies between what you say in the interview and what you had in your affidavit. It's a serious thing that you want to prepare for. So yes, bring an attorney to your interview. These are great questions, guys. Keep them coming. What happens if I go to an immigration appointment and I'm afraid of being detained? Just talked about that. So bring your lawyer. We'll help you prepare for the interview, and we'll be there by your side. And we'll, what you need to be worried about is if you have a warrant out for your arrest. And warrants happen if you've been arrested for a crime and you've not complied with something. You haven't shown up for a court hearing, you haven't paid a fine, you haven't taken a required class. There was some agreement and you were supposed to do things and you didn't do those things. Those can lead to warrants for your arrest. So if you have a criminal history, like you've been arrested, even for something minor, even for a traffic ticket, you want to make sure everything's been paid, all of the requirements have been met, you don't owe anything to anybody, there's nothing pending, because those are the things that can result in a warrant. And you can check if you have a warrant, like in Travis County, you can just Google warrant search, and check under your name. But that's the best way to make sure you're not going to get arrested at an immigration interview, is to not have a warrant out for your arrest. Un consejo: hace unos días, inmigración arrestó a un familiar, entró menor, tiene un permiso de trabajo. Okay. sí, debemos consultar, Elizabeth, sobre ese arresto porque si tiene un permiso de trabajo, esta persona tiene protección contra deportación y me imagino que podemos sacarlo bajo fianza o bajo palabra. Entonces vale la pena hablar lo más pronto que sea posible sobre las opciones para esta persona. Y lo siento porque esto pasó. So this is someone who had a family member arrested. They entered as a minor and now they have a work permit. And what I'm saying is let's consult on this person's case immediately because if they have a work permit, then they likely have a protection against deportation and we can get them out on bond or we can work, we can help them. So let's consult directly about this person and see what we can do. En TikTok, Noemi, hola Noemi, los que tenemos casos pendientes con inmigración tenemos que registrarnos. Dependiendo en el tipo de caso que tiene pendiente. Los que están en corte de inmigración, yendo a audiencias, los que tienen residencia permanente pendiente o los que entraron con visa no tienen que registrar. Pero el resto de estas personas que tienen VAWA, visa T, visa U, protección familiar, todos ellos tienen que registrar bajo el requisito. This question was about the people that have cases already pending with immigration. Do they have to comply with the registration requirement? And the answer to that question is it depends on what kind of case you have. So the people who are already considered registered, you don't have to register, is you have a court case pending, like you go to immigration court hearings, okay? Or you entered with a visa, like you have an I-94, or if you filed a green card application. Usually it's the I-485 application. All those folks are already registered. You're considered registered. You don't have to do anything. But if you have another type of application pending, like maybe a VAWA or a U visa or a T visa or an I-130 or a DACA, something else like that, you are required to register under the law. And so you have to decide whether or not to register. That might be a person who goes ahead and registered because you're already on record. You already have a case pending with immigration. So maybe you'll go ahead and register. I will say that the registration is so stupid because they make people pick a date that they intend to leave. And so someone who has DACA or, VAWA, it's like, you're not leaving, you're applying for legal status. So why would you pick a date for departure? So it's tricky. And that's why I really think these questions about registration should be handled with your lawyer so that we can help you in a private, confidential conversation decide what you're going to do, because just giving blanket advice like this over the internet that applies to everybody, it's not applicable in every case and it's not safe. A follow-up from Elizabeth: si llevo inmigración pero lo tienen en un correccional de menores, se lo llevo inmigración. So Elizabeth, sí, lo podemos sacar si es menor de edad. So debemos hablar, okay, debemos consultar porque podemos sacar los menores de edad. This child was detained and is in a detention center for minors, and we can do those. We can help you get those kiddos out. So send us a message. We'll help you. Melanie, is state different? What about sanctuary cities? Okay, so sanctuary cities, really hot stuff right now. Sanctuary doesn't really mean anything. That's not a definition under the law, but generally sanctuary means a city that doesn't fully cooperate with ICE. And cooperate means sign a 287G agreement, send the cops out to arrest people for immigration violations. Okay, so there's a lot of cities that are like on the spectrum of sanctuary. Some of the cities, like I think Los Angeles or some cities on the West Coast, are very loud and proud about not cooperating. And then there's some cities that just silently kind of don't really share as much information with immigration. The Trump administration has sued some of the cities on the West Coast, and this week a federal judge ruled that they don't have to cooperate. This is the balance of powers, the separation of powers, where the feds can't tell the states what to do when it comes to law enforcement. That is within the state's purview. So sanctuary cities are very in flux. I will say one thing that we are seeing about sanctuary cities is that tends to draw the ire or the attention of the feds. And so we'll see more ICE raids sometimes in places like that, so sanctuary doesn't always mean safer necessarily. But the best thing we can do is understand where you are. What is the current relationship of local law enforcement with ICE where you live? I live in Austin, Texas. Currently, the Austin Police Department does not act as immigration enforcers. That could change if the Texas legislature enforces that on the city. But right now, they don't do that. So, for example, immigrants, being pulled over by APD are typically not being arrested just for being immigrants. But if you go just outside the city and you're in Bastrop, well, Bastrop has an agreement with ICE. They cooperate, fully with ICE. And so getting pulled over driving without a license in Bastrop is a very different experience for an immigrant than getting pulled over in Austin without a license. So understanding those nuances and the relationships will help give you an understanding of how safe you are with your local law enforcement where you live. And so the best thing, again, I know I'm a broken record. I'm sorry, y'all, but the best thing to do, talk to a lawyer about how to live as an immigrant in your area. Should I register? What documents should I carry on me? Am I eligible for anything? What should my safety plan be? These are all things that you should be able to talk to your lawyer about. Okay, combo card, but I have a return at the border. Can I travel abroad? Can I have more information? I assume you mean the work permit advance parole combo card because you have a green card application pending. But a return at the border, I'm curious how you have a return at the border and a combo card at the same time. Those two things generally don't go hand in hand. But anytime somebody's got a return at the border, be super careful leaving. Super careful because all the notes from that previous incident are in your file. And that's one of the first things that triggers them to send somebody into secondary. Melanie, how can we find out if our local police are working with ICE? That's a great question. Melanie, where are you? What city are you in? Maybe I know. What should I do if ICE leaves a letter on my door? Call a lawyer for sure, and then we'll figure out what's going on, what your risk is, if the letter's for you, if it's for somebody else. Sometimes we can communicate with ICE and say, hey, we represent this person. Why are you leaving letters on their door? To try and preempt any kind of enforcement action. Okay. Brooklyn. Okay. As I understand it, Brooklyn is not cooperative with ICE. So I think you're pretty safe with local PD in, sort of New York City and the boroughs. That's my current understanding. There's a lot going on in New York politically with immigration, but that's my understanding. Is it safe to self-deport? So this is an interesting question. Leaving the country is easy. So it's like, can you leave? Yes, they're not stopping people from leaving. The difficult thing is getting back in. But before you self-deport, make sure you talk to a lawyer about what it means, because they are putting out a massive public information campaign, like videos with Kristi Noem. I mean, you see them at the car dealership when you're sitting and waiting for your car. There's just videos everywhere. I saw some in the airport that are telling people, hey, if you leave, you'll be able to come back legally. It's not true. That's not the way the law functions. They are lying. So before you leave, understand, in all likelihood, if you leave, you're not going to be able to come back. So is this really what you want? Is it really what you want to leave the U.S.? I mean, I wouldn't blame you, but if it's not really what you want, consider other options. Talk to a lawyer. See if you have eligibility for legal status in this country before you make the decision to leave. I think a lot of people are making fear-based decisions, which I certainly understand, but without having the full perspective on their situation and everything. And so I just implore anyone who's considering self-deportation to talk to a lawyer before you go, so you understand everything about what it will look like, whether you can come back, all of that. I-130, okay, Noemi. Yeah, aplicantes de I-130 deben de registrarse. Estoy en espera del perdón para poder aplicar para I-485. Sí, una persona en esta situación, si entró sin visa, está bajo el requisito de registrar, porque todavía no ha entregado el I-485. Can I apply for a humanitarian visa if I have a very sick family member in the U.S.? Technically, yes. Practically, not worth it. Historically, humanitarian parole was something we could get for people who came in and who needed to come in to visit a very sick relative. Trump administration has suspended humanitarian parole, so I don't think that it's a reality in this situation. Mooresville, North Carolina. Okay. I don't know. I'll have to look that up. Would you send me a direct message about Mooresville and I'll look it up and respond to you? I'm guessing based on the state that, I don't know. Actually, I'm not going to guess. I'm going to look it up and I'll let you know. Because, like, for example, I live in the state of Texas, and one might think that all of law enforcement is cooperative, but it's not true. We still have some cities where what I would say is public safety matters. Here's my opinion on this stuff. Obviously I'm pro-immigrant and all of that. When local law enforcement engages in cooperative agreements with ICE, it breaks down the trust relationship of the community with police, so that people don't want to talk to the cops. They aren't willing to serve as witnesses to crimes. They aren't willing to call the police when they are victims of crimes. And all in all, public safety breaks down. And this is what, police chiefs and sheriffs have said to the Texas legislature when they talk about this stuff with them. Don't force us to be immigration enforcers. We don't want that. We prefer to have a solid relationship with our community. That's what they want. So that's the debate that's out there. But sometimes in a very rural/racist/anti-immigrant community, the heads of the police department are more, of that mind. And then there's places like Austin, Texas, where I live, where this is a pretty, liberal city, but we're in a very conservative state. So there are certain law enforcement agencies that resist it, being immigration enforcers, but then the state comes down and pushes that upon us. So that's something that we're potentially facing right now in Texas. Is the legislature going to force all of the local law enforcement agencies to become immigration enforcers, which I think would be terrible for public safety overall. Thank you so much for all the questions, you guys. These are really good questions. I appreciate the engagement. And please share this video with your friends if you think that this would be of value to them. I'm here every Tuesday in English, every Thursday in Spanish. So happy to just help you guys make these hard decisions in your lives. Let's do the action item of the week. This is the reason I do this, is because I know so many people are struggling with ways that you can help and get involved. As always, please do continue to call your legislators. Use the app 5calls.org. Makes it really easy. But for this week, your action tip is to donate your unused household items to a local mutual aid group or shelter. And if you do make a donation and you find an organization that's receiving donations, please post about it online and tag us so we can follow what's happening. In Austin, where I am, Casa Marianella is a really great shelter. They have a bunch of houses for homeless immigrants who have experienced abuse and other harm. And they often need furnishings, for people who are like graduating and they're moving into their first apartment, furnishings or clothes or things like that. So if you have stuff to donate, go ahead and go through your closet, get rid of that chair you've been needing to get rid of, and find an organization that could use your support and tell us about it. Thanks, everybody, for being with me, and I'll see you on Thursday.